book of Exodus, when the Most High instructs Pharaoh to let his people go, what is it that he's saying to him? He's saying to free my people, that my people are being oppressed or held under a form of bondage, and I need you to free them. And he said, let my people go so that they can serve me, so that they can worship me, right? So he did not try to persuade him to change the way that he was treating them or anything like that. The people of Yah had a bigger destiny. They had a greater destiny. They had a promise that the Most High was bringing them to a place of complete freedom, complete shalom, right? He was bringing them to a place of wholeness where they will be able to exercise and experience freedom in all realms of life, in every dimension. So he told him to let his people go so that they can be free, so that they can serve him, right? So there is a freedom that the Most High desires for his people that is beyond what we have yet experienced. And so I want to explore in this series what it means to be free and looking at, are we free? So in this particular video, I want to look at some different elements of freedom. I want to explore the idea of freedom over a series of videos and look at different angles. In the book of John, chapter 8, Yahusha says in verse 31, it says, to those Yahudim who believed him, he said, if you stay in my word, you are truly my taught ones, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And they answered him, we are the seed of Abraham, and have been servants to no one at any time. How do you say you shall become free? Yahusha answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. So he's telling them that if they abide in his word, that they shall know the truth, and the truth shall make them free. However, they're saying that they are already free. They're saying that they don't need to be set free. And because they don't know or perceive where they are in bondage, they're not able to get free. So he introduced to them another realm of bondage that they are unaware of, because they're only looking at a certain element. So if we don't perceive the areas where we need to achieve freedom, then we will settle for bondage. We'll settle for less than what the Most High desires for us. We'll settle for less than what he has promised us and what is required of us. So freedom is equivalent to salvation, to deliverance, liberation, liberty. He has came to set us free, came to set the captives free. So, but if you don't perceive where you are a captive, then you can't be set free. So he goes on to tell them and explain that to them, right? And then he says, then he says in verse 36, if then the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. So we're looking for that freedom indeed, and we don't want to be made captive again. In the book of Galatians, chapter 5, Paul says to them, in the freedom with which Messiah has made us free, stand firm then, and do not again be held with a yoke of slavery. He's telling them in this book to not allow themselves to lose the freedom that they have gained in Messiah, to not allow anyone to come and put chains on them again. So he's saying something here. He's saying that if we don't allow ourselves, or we don't maintain this freedom, then we can find ourselves being bound again. So even though we've achieved freedom, if freedom is our portion, that we can lose it if we allow ourselves to become bound again. So he's telling them to stand firm in this freedom, because it is for freedom that Messiah has set us free. So freedom is very important. Yahusha came to set the captives free. The Most High sent him to set the captives free. And we are those who are on a mission to be free, to seek freedom, to walk in freedom, and to free others on this journey. So I want to take a look at this over a series of videos, and I hope that you go on this journey with me. And in this particular video, we're going to jump in and we're going to take a look at the 5 dimensions of life where we have to achieve freedom. So we're going to start there. We're going to be talking about the topic of freedom. And I'm posing the question, are we free? And to what extent are we free? To what degree are we free? And to what degree do we still have realms of bondage? Okay? So, another word for freedom, we could say liberation. And in this context, you can also say salvation. You can also say deliverance. So this is the angle that we're looking at. And I'm going to be exploring 5 dimensions, what I believe to be 5 dimensions of life that this freedom, this salvation, this deliverance, this liberation has to permeate in order for the answer to be yes, we are free. Yes, I am free. Okay? Fully. All right? So that's what I want to begin to look at today. And I'm just going to jump right in. I have a diagram here. It's a circular diagram, and it's showing what I believe to be 5 dimensions of life that we have to achieve freedom. All right, so I'm going to give just a brief overview. I'm just going to overview the 5 dimensions, and as we go on, I'm going to come back and go. I want to give an overview in this video, and I want to come back and go more in detail for each one of these 5 areas. Okay, so the first realm, the first dimension is the area of the spirit. That's we have to achieve freedom and salvation and deliverance. We have to achieve this freedom in the spirit, in our spiritual realm, right? That's the first area that I have here. All right, the next area that I have is your soul and your body. All right, your soul and your body. Now I'm putting the soul and the body together as one. All right, you have to work out this freedom on that level of your soul and body, your nefesh, your being. Okay. So then the next level, the next dimension, the next layer we have here is in our relationships, our personal relationships, right, with other individuals. Okay, our freedom in the level of our relationships, in our interpersonal relationships with people. Okay, individuals. All right, so the next layer here is in our relationships with the establishments and the institutions that make up our society. It's a societal level of freedom. Whatever things it takes to engage in your day-to-day life, there's either a level of freedom or bondage experience there. So we're going to look at that level. And then the final level, the final dimension here is the governmental level. The governmental powers, the kingdom, the laws, the whatever oversight that you are under. Okay, how is that? Is there a freedom or is there bondage instituted by that level? All right, so we're going to look at all 5 of these levels. Okay, we're going to look at it from different angles. We're going to ultimately, our goal is going to be to reflect on where we are in our fight for freedom, in our fight for deliverance. Okay, and once we determine that where we are according to these different 5 dimensions, then to take it to the next level. Okay, and in some cases that's going to mean going back some levels. Okay, and I'm gonna break down what I mean by that. But something's important to just take note of here is that while each one of these dimensions are distinct, and in this journey that we're working out is going to be progressive. So each layer is distinct and progressive, meaning starting from the spirit level, working all the way out is progressive, and each layer is separate and distinct. However, None of these layers exist in a vacuum by itself, separately from the others. So they all are going to overlap and intersect with each other. Okay, so that's why I'm using this circular diagram. So while each layer is distinct and has to be dealt with in distinct ways, it's also all interconnected. They're not separate from each other, right? For example, your spirit, we're going to look at that separate from your soul and your body. However, your spirit, soul, and body aren't going anywhere without each other, right? There's no, it all makes up you, right? And it's going to be with you as you go to this next level and engage with your relationships. Okay, it's going to be your spirit, soul, and body that's engaging in your relationships with individuals, and those relationships are going to be connected to this next level of societal institutions and establishments. Whatever you're doing and engaging in life is going to be dealing with people, right? And then that whatever institutions you're dealing with, whatever you're dealing with in society, that's going to be governed by some type of laws and governmental body. It's going to determine how you're able to function, right? So while each dimension here has a distinct role in this process of freedom, none of them are totally exclusive and separate from the others. And that's with all of life, really. That's a viewpoint that we have to regain, because in this Western society especially, we're taught to look at things in a very segmented, individualistic, kind of isolated manner, instead of looking at things holistically and collectively, and how the part affects the whole, right? So we have to restore that view. We have to restore that sound view of perceiving things, of how the individual part affects the whole parts. Nothing is separate in the island to itself. Nothing is everything is affected. Everything is interconnected. We have to regain that way of looking at things. So on each level, each dimension, we have to determine who our enemy is and how we are going to overcome that enemy on each layer, right? And we have to determine what victory and what freedom looks like on each one of these layers, all right? So I want to take a look at the Messiah, Yahusha, and his ministry as we explore this topic. And I want to start at Acts chapter 1. And in the book of Acts chapter 1, this is after Messiah was killed and he resurrected and appeared to his followers. And so I want to start at go down to verse 6, and it says, "So when they had come together, they asked him, saying, Master, would you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel?" They said, "Master, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel?" So see, the first century Nazarenes, the first century followers of Yahusha, the first century, even those who did not follow Yahusha, but who were in Israel at that time, the Hebrews, they were looking to be freed on, when you look at this diagram, this final level of this governmental level, this kingdom level, okay? They were looking for freedom on that level. That was their expectation of what the Messiah was going to come to do. They were looking for him to come to restore to Israel a sovereign kingdom that was free from the oppressive kingdoms whose rule that they were under. Okay, this was their expectation. I'm going to read Luke chapter 1, verse 30. And this is when the messenger came to give the message about the coming of the Messiah, basically. And when he came to Miriam, and this is what he said, verse 30, it says, "And the messenger said to her, Do not be afraid, Miriam, for you have found favor with Elohim. And see, you shall conceive in your womb, and shall give birth to a son, and call his name Yahusha. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Most High. And Yahuwah Elohim shall give him the throne of his father David, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and there shall be no end to his kingdom. Okay, so I just want to read that just to reiterate that this was declared, that this is who the Messiah was going to be, and this is what the outcome of his life was going to be. So this kingdom and the one who was coming to be the head of the body that would establish this kingdom is prophesied all throughout the scriptures. All throughout the scriptures. Okay, so, but here, I just wanted to establish that fact here just by reading Luke 1:33 of what the expectation was of what his life would bring, right? So, but here, back in Acts chapter 1, let me finish reading. Verse 6 says, so when they had come together, they asked him, saying, Master, would you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? And he said to them, it is not for you to know times or seasons which the Father has put in his own authority. Okay? But you shall receive power when the set apart Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all of Yehuda and Shemaron and to the end of the earth. Okay? So here in Acts chapter 1, Yahushua says that it's under the Father's authority when that was going to be done. But that what was happening, getting ready to happen right in this moment, was that the set apart Spirit was coming to give them power. Okay, and also he says that receiving that power, they would be witnesses to the ends of the earth. Okay, so let's look at this diagram again with the dimensions of freedom. So the early believers were looking for the current kingdom to be overthrown and for the kingdom of Israel to be established again in the land. Okay, they were under this Roman rule. So they had good reason to expect that this is what was getting ready to happen. However, the Most High had a different plan as to how this was getting ready to be accomplished. Okay, the Most High had a plan on how this was going to unfold. Yah tends to declare the end from the beginning, right? But then the beginning has to be worked out through a process to get to that end that he has revealed, right? So the Most High was revealing to them now through Yahushua that the power he was giving them at this time was going to be through his Spirit, which is the inner layer of this diagram that we have here, this inner layer of freedom. So that's the beginning of this process that's going to lead to the kingdom being reclaimed, right? So it's interesting. Right now, 21st century believers today tend to have the opposite problem that the first century believers had. Okay, so the first century believers, they were looking for the physical kingdom to be put in order. And the Most High had to direct them to the beginning of this process that he was starting, that was going to begin with the Spirit. But today, in the 21st century, believers begin with this spirit level of freedom. They begin there, right? It's clear that, the Son came to make you free, to free you from, on this spiritual level, right? But today's believers seem to a lot of times stop right there on that spiritual level, not realizing that, there's more to freedom than just that spiritual level. And that's why we're looking at these 5 dimensions, these 5 levels, right? So today's problem is a lot different, almost the opposite just about of what it was then. We start and understand that it's a spiritual level thing, but not realizing that it has to be worked out. Even that spiritual level of freedom, if it's not worked out to the outer layers, it can't be maintained. If you don't work this spiritual level of freedom out to each one of these levels, you can't maintain what you have even gained. Okay, so salvation has to be worked out to the outer levels to remain in a state of freedom, to achieve freedom. It's a progressive deliverance. And when we cease to progress, we cease to be free. Okay? Reminds me when it says that even what you have will be taken from you, you know, if you do not increase. So it is my belief that once this end of days struggle for freedom is worked to the outermost layer of the freedom or bondage of the governing powers, that we are either going to face victory at that point, or we're going to face martyrdom. And the Most High, Yah, is going to intervene, which will bring about the return of the head, the Messiah, to avenge his body, his bride, right? He's coming back for a bride without spot or blemish. So the bride has to, from the spirit level, work that salvation out to the soul and body level. Work that salvation, that deliverance, that freedom out into our relational level between us as sisters and brothers in him, right? And work that out into the societal things that we engaging in day-to-day life, and then work that out to where there's the only thing opposing us now is these governmental powers that the Most High has instituted, right? Because this final realm has been allowed to rise by the authority of the Most High, because our inner condition gave it a right to rule over us, right? But just like the authority of death is sin, when you sin, you are under the law of death. But it had no power to hold Yahusha because he was sinless, right? That's why he was able to resurrect. He was able to resurrect because he was without sin, so the law of sin and death had no power over him. He didn't break the law of sin, so the law of death had to let him go. So he was able to be resurrected through the Spirit of the Most High. Okay, so but for us, there's an authority. We have to, if we don't work out this salvation that we've gained through the Spirit and work it out, the Most High, Yahusha's coming back for a bride without spot or blemish, right? If we don't work it out so that we are a bride ready without spot or blemish, then we don't have there's no authority for us to come up from under this bondage, these systems, right? They have a right to rule and reign over us. Okay. So, but I believe that when we work out this salvation to the level of the governmental powers, that we are going to either see a victory that we haven't seen before, or we're going to face martyrdom, or we're going to face persecution of imprisonment, or we're going to face whatever the consequences will be. But the Most High is going to intervene at that point, right? And he's going to bring the Messiah back. Okay, he's going to bring the head of the body back, and the head and the body together are going to overcome this kingdom of the earth. The dry bones are going to rise up as a mighty army ready for the King Yahusha. All right. So when we look at the fact that the Most High is the authority over these kingdoms, he has allowed these kingdoms. Yes, the enemy, the adversarial spirit is what is running these kingdoms of the world, but it can only do what the Most High has allowed them to do for a time. Okay, but when that time is up, the Most High, Yahusha said that the most is in the Most High's, it's in the Father's authority to what the time and the season is that this kingdom is going to be overthrown. But we're going to get more, and we're going to get more into it. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but when we look at how, why our movements have failed, our movements, as a people that have been seeking liberation, why have a lot of them failed? because freedom and deliverance is not being worked out on each level. We either skip a level or we stop progressing to the next level. What do I mean by that? We skip a level. Let's look at the diagram. We have had movements. We look at the Black Panthers. We look at different civil rights movements. We have had movements, right, that are trying to achieve this freedom on the institutional level, right, the societal level. Okay, and you see that it fails. So on the societal level, we gather together, we unify, and we fight against the governmental bodies, and we fail time and time again. So why is this? We're not starting at the spirit level. Okay, we skipped levels. We skipped levels. So what happens when you skip levels? Either the soul and the body, the nefesh, the being of the person, becomes a hindrance. The person's own motives or agendas causes them to undermine the movement, and then you become a Judas. It causes you to undermine something that in your soul and body, where salvation and freedom and deliverance has not been worked out, causes you to become a hindrance, right? On a relational level, there's a lack in unity. There's an inability to unify because going back that level, the soul body has not been, the salvation has not been worked out on that level. Why? Because a lot of times it's not starting with the spirit level. The spirit has not been renewed by the spirit of the Most High Yah, according to his word, according to his set apart spirit, right? So we're skipping levels and just organizing on the institutional level to come against, on the societal level, to come against the hardships that we're facing and running into problems when it gets to that governmental level, because we don't have the authority in the spirit to overcome it on a large scale. So as I said, we're going through this, we've been either our movements have failed. Why have our movements failed? Because we've skipped levels or we've stopped progressing. So when we look at those who are believers in Yahusha, who have come to a salvation on a spiritual level, and then, like I said earlier, a lot of times we'll stop right there on that spirit level and never progress and work out the salvation in a soul level. We'll never work out our soul's salvation, right? So we have all these personal things that have not been renewed, these mindsets, these strongholds that have not come under submission of the spirit. So we can never have the type of relationships that will form unity and form a bond that will start to work together to achieve freedom on a societal level that'll bring us up to the governmental level. So there's a ceasing, or there are those who have achieved the spiritual level and that have worked it out into the soul body level, and they've worked it out into a relational level, and then they stop right there, and they have not progressed to trying to make a change on a societal level. Or for those who have moved into that realm to make a change on a societal level, it stopped right there and it's never affected. It's never been a moving out towards the governmental level. So on some level, I would say on all of them, there's been skipping, and there's been skipping levels and not starting with the spirit, which is the starting point. Or there's been a starting there and never continuing to progress collectively. Okay, I'm not saying that individually that no one's ever gone through this process, but collectively we have lost the vision to be able to get to where we're really trying to achieve. So but I believe that we're in the season, we're in the days, we're in the end days, we're in the season where we're going to see the Most High intervene. We're going to see the return of the King, but the King is coming to return as the head of a body, a bride without spot or blemish that's ready to meet. So, but if we're not equipping, if we're not working out, haven't worked out freedom on all of these levels, worked out deliverance on all these levels, and we just need him now to come with the authority, because it's been put under the Father's authority when that final level, when the kingdom is going to be established on the earth, that's under the Father's final authority. So until we've worked that out, and so that when the Yahusha comes in the Father's timing and authority as the King, as the head, to be able to meet his body, and so we together are a mighty army to work that out on that final level. If we're not working towards that, our vision is off. How can we unify? What are we unifying for? So we have to go back over these and examine ourselves individually and collectively to look at, okay, where am I at personally in this struggle towards freedom, in this fight towards our collective freedom? Where am I? You know, and so as I said in the beginning, some of us are going to have to go back. Some of us are trying to fight on in a societal level while not having the not having encountered the Most High in a spiritual way, not having worked out our soul's salvation, not being able to adequately have relationships. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about on a level that the Most High standard is established in His Torah. You know what He has, the standards that He has set. There are so many ways that our mind has to be renewed from the influences of this society that we are under, this Roman mindset that we are under. Okay, we have to be renewed in the spirit of our minds so that we can rightly discern all of the realms of our life that need to be reformed to a kingdom standard. Okay, so this is the process that we're in, and this is why I'm exploring this topic here. And today I just wanted to give that overview just to kind of give a direction. As we go on, we're going to dig more into this topic, Yah willing. And any questions, any insight, any thoughts, please leave it in the comments on whatever page you see this on. And I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to you joining me on future videos. Shalom.